to the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast with your hosts Griffin Palmer, CJ Hickman, Jason Cabrera, and Ryan Mitchell.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is Friday, September 8th. This is the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast, the official podcast of thefantasyfootballfanatics.com. I'm your host, Griffin Palmer. I am joined over the phone by CJ, the Hitman Hickman, and Jason Cabrera. What is up, guys?
What's up, man? Week one, baby. Week one.
Football has actually happened. Actual football
and
has
it
actually
could
happened.
not be better. Of course, the Patriots, defending champions, lost a game, which is great. People can't be mad at us for that.
You're such a hater, man.
I am, as is all the entire fan base of 31 other teams out there. So, it's a great start to the season. Went exactly the way I hoped it would, but did not think it would go that way. So, yeah. And can I just say the clear, obvious difference between preseason football and regular season football? Just the different quality of the product that they put out there.
Oh, yeah.
Night and day.
Oh, yeah. So good. So much better.
So much better. So that's awesome. And, of course, that brings us into our show. We have an amazing show for you guys today. Today, we're going to be talking about our starts and sits for week number 1. Of course, also all the top headlines from around the league. As always, please make sure you guys subscribe to the show wherever you are listening or watching. iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, the works. You can always submit your questions if you have lineup questions, ad drops, things of that nature in between recordings at the FF Fanatics on Twitter. You can submit your email questions to thefantasyfootballfanatics@gmail.com. You can always submit questions on Facebook as well at facebook.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. Lots of options there. And of course, if you want to have guaranteed question answering, because we get we get so many questions throughout the week. If you want to make sure you have guaranteed question answering along with many other perks, including bonus, more in-depth topics every single week, bonus episodes, people, head over to patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. That's really just some of the many perks that we offer over there. So if you want to see what those are, go over there, check it out, and help support the show. Help us keep these lights on. Help us keep doing what we are doing, and hopefully then we can help you bring home a fantasy title, which is, why we do what we do. So again, that's patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. So with that, let's move into our warm-up question of the day, which is, we kind of started to talk about it a little bit. What was your biggest takeaway from the season opener last night? And I have to start simply saying, man, were we right about Kareem Hunt? He was who we thought he was. Holy crap, guys. Kareem Hunt, 3 touchdowns. And he should have had a 4th, but Charkandrick West vultured it. Could it be any better of a fairy tale story? He fumbles on his very, very first carry, and then he goes out and puts up, 100 and I forget how many combined yards it was. I don't have it in front of me.
182.
182, thank you. I was going to say, I know it was 180 something. 182 and 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 2 receiving. Holy crap.
So good.
He's a freaking beast, man. He's a beast.
Used it
awesome.
All 3 phases. And we were chatting on our personal chat that we have so we can communicate outside the show. And we were even talking about Charkandrick West being in some of the early downs after that fumble where he's like, I don't know, Charkandrick West is in. He's getting some receptions. But, yeah, Kareem Hunt put all that to rest. He looked awesome. What'd you guys think?
Oh, I loved it. I'm playing Jason right now in one of our leagues. So
in our league of record, no less.
Little record, so I had a lot of interest in this game. I didn't want to play those guys, but because of the hurricane, I was forced to put Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt in there. So I was watching very nervously because the first quarter did not pan out like I wanted to. But as the game going on, man, it was absolutely fun to watch. So I'm in love on what I'm seeing on the field with Kansas City. They're doing a lot, getting the ball down the field, running the ball good. They're doing a lot of crazy formations and stuff like that. That basically threw off the Patriots, and I loved every bit of it.
I agree. Jason?
Yeah. No, like we talked about, we talked about Kareem Hunt. We also talked about Tyreek Hill. This guy looks exactly like I expected him to look. The speed is just ridiculous, and there was a blown coverage on that long 75-yard touchdown pass. I don't know where the Patriots were, but they were on a different field from the one that Tyreek Hill was on, because he's running down there. I don't think there was a defender within 10 yards of him when he caught that ball, and then he just cruised into the end zone, gave him a peace sign on his way. Peace, I'm out. On his way past. That was amazing, and I really like to see Alex Smith open up the offense and actually throw the ball down the field. Because that wasn't the only time he did that. He hit some long passes tonight. And, I mean, he looked sharp. It was one of the best games I've ever seen that guy play.
I think it was 2 passes of over 75 yards. I don't remember if they were both scoring plays. I'd assume they were. But, that was that's pretty good. That's not what we come to really expect from Alex Smith.
Not bad.
You know, he kind of blew up that whole game manager thing. You know, the whole drafting of a first-round rookie behind him seems to have really inspired him this season, at least in the season opener. My other takeaway from the game was that, you know, man, and this is, you know, the way it is. Defenses really need time to gel and build chemistry, and it's just hard to do with these vanilla defenses they run for like a quarter out of a game. So, I mean, you saw even within the game itself, the defenses started to get better as the night went along. But, I mean, it's going to take time for a lot of these top-tier defenses, especially, like I guess I should say the lower-tier defenses, to really start building that chemistry to get better throughout the season. Even the top-tier ones, though, like we saw tonight, they took some time. I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, that's, of course, me being a defensive-minded guy, being a Ravens fan. That's the one thing I was really watching and trying to see how these offenses were just making these big plays happen. And a lot of it was blown coverages. It wasn't necessarily anything the offense was doing. What were your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, your last thought really ties into what my first mindset was. The notes from this game, defense was sloppy at first. You know what I mean? It looked like the Chiefs, they weren't settled. You know, after that first series, but then they came back, and it was like the shift of momentum real quick on both sides of the ball. The Chiefs, they started off real slow, and then they just got real physical and just kept that pace going on. When it went to the Patriots, after, Hightower went down, it was just, lack of experience back there, no physicality, blown coverages, not communicating. It just looked just a mess back there. It looked like they really was just at a practice. Like that was their first day of training camp. That was on week 1. That's basically what that looked like. And it was really bad. But they need to get that together, because that's not Super Bowl caliber defense you're going to be able to get you there.
Nope. Even with all those really nice additions they made, they look worse than last year.
Yeah. I mean, Hightower, you hit it right on the head, CJ. Hightower going down was a killer for New England. He's the centerpiece of that defense. He's the quarterback of the defense, and they just looked lost after he was down. They didn't know what to do. They were getting run on by a rookie. He was just shredding them. And overall, it was just awesome. It was awesome to watch. The thing I found interesting also was the New England backfield. We've been wondering all offseason what that's going to look like, what that's going to feel like. And I think we kind of have a little bit better understanding of what we're going to see out of New England in the backfield. Gillislee was getting a lot of the work, especially near the in the red zone.
Yep.
James White was getting a lot of work between the 20s. And then we saw a sprinkling of Burkhead kind of throughout the game. He's sort of a big play guy. So that was interesting to see. I still don't like it. Too much of a committee for me. But at least we know that Gillislee is the guy you're going to be looking at if you want touchdowns. So that's pretty much the deal there.
Yeah, I wasn't like I'm still not going out and picking up probably any one of these guys, but yeah, it looks like what the overall general consensus was is turning out to be the case. So everybody thought it was going to be kind of Gillislee and then a variation between the situation between White and Burkhead, and yeah, it's basically what we saw. Any other things you guys want to mention really fast before we move on?
I mean, praise.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm bad. Just real quick. Just praising Alex Smith once again. I mean, we said he threw the ball down the field. He was 28 for 35, 368 points, and 4 touchdowns. That's crazy. Sure. That's phenomenal. And there was a lot of fantasy analysts that I was, looking at, seeing their starts and sits. This dude was not even in their top 20. So, that's a big mouth he did to all of those analysts. So, I praise him for that. He did good tonight. Or last night.
368 yards.
Yeah.
TJ, not
yards.
That would be amazing.
Sorry, yards.
Wow.
You won. Right. No, the one thing I'm just really, really happy about, and I'm glad it was over as quick as it was. No more perfect season talk for New England. I was getting real sick and tired of hearing people talk about, well, maybe they'll get a perfect season. I was like, you haven't played a single game, guys. You don't know how they're going to play yet. And then they walk in and get smashed in the first game with freaking Kansas City. Kansas City, of all teams, scoring 42 points on them. So that's over, and that actually might be good for you Patriots fans out there listening. That actually might be good for them because now they don't have to focus on that. They're not worried about that. The pressure's off. They've lost their first game. Now they can focus on what they're supposed to be doing. If that's the kind of fan that you are, you can look forward to that.
Yeah. So it was actually 148 rushing yards and then 98 receiving yards for Kareem Hunt. So
okay.
that puts him over 200 combined yards. That's just insane.
Even better.
Yeah.
I love it.
Wow.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. 3 touchdowns.
I'll take that. Yeah. Yeah. So just for the sake of fantasy.
Didn't we have him in our industry league?
Yeah, he is. He's one of our starting running backs in our industry league. So we're off to a good start against. Oh crap! What was that? Not necessarily his name drop.
I don't know.
But I forget what website we're playing this week. I'll bring it up and mention it later on. But some things I just wanted to run down very quickly. Some notable things that happened, injuries in this game, especially for fantasy purposes. Tyreek Hill, he did go down, but it turned out to be cramping. The severity is unknown, but he was probable to return as it was. So, I mean, we expect him to be fine. Danny Amendola did leave the game in the concussion protocol, so we'll monitor that going forward. Eric Berry, this was the big one.
Oh.
This is a huge loss to the Kansas City defense, especially in their secondary. So, I mean, look for pass catchers to have a little bit easier time potentially going forward. I mean, he was basically exclusively covering Rob Gronkowski and holding Gronk to basically nothing throughout the game. He went down with an Achilles injury, the severity of which is currently unknown as of the time of this recording, but he was carted off the field, so something to monitor. And Donta Howard,
I heard a potential tear.
Yeah.
On the Achilles. That's what the last thing I read.
That's the widespread assumption right now. So we will obviously update as we know more. And then Deonta Hightower, he went down with a knee injury, and like you guys were saying, when he went down, man, you just saw that entire Patriots defense look like they kind of lost their way. So we'll see how that shakes out. That's more of an IDP loss right there, but it clearly affected the Patriots defense as a whole. So with that, let's move on to some of our top headlines from around the league. A lot to get to today. Now, a good number of this stuff we already tweeted out as it was happening throughout the week, so some of this may be somewhat old news, and we're a little late getting to it, but that's because of our recording schedule. But we're going to fire through, and that gives us more time to get some clarity on these things. So we'll start with, of course, as we mentioned on Tuesday's show, Hurricane Irma, rather. I don't know why I can't talk today. Due to Hurricane Irma, I'm like ahead of what I'm actually reading, and it's throwing me off. Due to Hurricane Irma, the Tampa Bay at Miami game has been moved to Week 11. So they are instead playing November 19th instead of this coming weekend, and it will count as their bye week this week. So now both of these teams have to play 16 weeks in a row. Oh, that's rough.
Suck.
Yeah, so I mean, expect your guys to have probably a great week too. I haven't looked at the matchups, but they might be wearing out by the end of the season. So I don't know if that's something you might want to be monitoring, or maybe seeing how they're resting their guys, or maybe if people aren't practicing, just assuming it's rest, or maybe you might want to trade these guys. Who knows? It's all case by case. So this, of course, is the hurricane is going to be landing, or by all current news outlets and weather reports, it should be hitting southern Florida on Sunday morning, so that's obviously why this is happening. The other option was to move it to a neutral site, which turns out to not be the case. Luckily, both of these teams had a Week 11 bye, so that's why they did it this way. Some are contesting that was a bad idea because, like we just mentioned, they have to play 16 games in a row. Miami, for instance, has to actually go play in England during one of these weeks, so that's rough. So again, if you have Jameis Winston, Jaquiz Rodgers, Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, Cameron Brate, Jay Cutler, Jay Ajayi, Devontae Parker, Jarvis Landry, Julius Thomas, players like that, you're going to want to go ahead and either, move them out of your starting lineup with some people on your bench, or start thinking about some guys that you could pick up off your waiver wire. So just obviously some heads up news going forward. If you're wondering why all of a sudden two teams are on a bye week and all those players, now you know why. Let's move on to some running back news. Oh man, I don't know if there's been a single player who's generated such a headache for me in one offseason, and that is Dallas Cowboys running back Ezekiel Elliott. Now, we tweeted this out on Tuesday. His suspension has officially been upheld by the NFL. The NFL's arbiter, Harold Henderson, officially ruled that the suspension should be upheld. The ruling was handed down after a deadline that they had placed on Tuesday, which was 4 p.m. on Tuesday. This came after that. So Ezekiel Elliott has been permitted to play in Week 1. This will therefore push his suspension back starting Week 2, and that means he's missing 6 games plus a bye week, so that's you won't be seeing him until Week 9. So that's pretty huge. But again, it doesn't stop there because this is just the tip of the iceberg. Now, this is what I was able to find out through multiple Google searches and talking to some people. Now, we talked about Ezekiel Elliott. He filed a lawsuit against the NFL, citing that there was a conspiracy against him by higher-ups. And there's a court ruling scheduled to come out later today at about 5 p.m. Friday, which is today, about that Ezekiel Elliott and the NFL Players Association, they filed for a temporary restraining order, or you'll see in a lot of documents called a TRO, for a suspension or a restraining order of the suspension. So if this does pass, then the suspension will be postponed until after this season, and it'll be, they'll figure out all the logistics. He could serve it in 2018, but he might play in all of 2017. That's only if it's granted. If it has not been granted, then this will go to court, and then for all we know, he could end up serving a suspension some point in the middle of the season, maybe towards the end of it. It's hard to say for sure. And this is all not even including the fact that then the league filed a countersuit and their own motion to dismiss Ezekiel Elliott's federal case as a whole. So there's so many directions this could still
crazy,
go.
Dude.
So, look, we're fantasy analysts. We're not lawyers. I mean, we're at this point, we're just basically giving you the news and updates as we're hearing it because this is not something for us to really analyze. It's a little bit outside of our realm of expertise here. But, guys, based on what you're hearing, what do you think the chances are Ezekiel Elliott plays this year? Because I think even through all this, I think that just from what I'm hearing, and I could be completely wrong here, I still think there's a good chance that he plays all 16 games this year because it's looking like between the possibility of the restraining order and then the lawsuit itself, there's just so much red tape that this might just get postponed. What do you guys think? What are you guys hearing?
Well, I don't know about you, Griffin, but me, I practice with bird law, so I'm pretty familiar on how everything's going right here.
Experts in bird law, yes.
Yeah, I studied in bird law. This is actually pretty crazy. I've never heard of something like this where you could file a restraining order on a suspension handled by your job. So that's pretty wild. But to be honest, I saw this coming. I knew that I didn't think his suspension was going to get reduced. It's been too many wild things that's been happening with this dude throughout the offseason. So I knew this was probably going to happen. But, I think people just planned on it, if it did go down with him serving the 6th, that they planned accordingly with that. We saw him still, in drafts and even in mock drafts, still going like in the 2nd or 3rd round. And people were just planning accordingly to that. So, if you have him, it would have been sweet to be able to get him, all 6th or, have it, postponed to next year. But, hey, I think you're smart enough that you knew this was probably going to happen and that you planned accordingly to that. So, for me, I'm not an owner of Zeke, but I'm confident that people planned accordingly to that.
We tried pretty diligently to get him in our industry league that we have with all the other websites, and I'm kind of glad we didn't get him right now, even though I still do think that he will probably play all the games. But we obviously, and by the time you're listening to this, you might know more. I could be completely wrong. We will know more later today. It'll be a step in the direction of which way this is going to be going. But, based on everything we've been hearing as well, remember our initial thought was that it would get reduced, but the more we were hearing about the NFL's policy against domestic violence, that 6 games, that was the minimum, and they wouldn't reduce below that, so I figured it was either going to go away, be suspended, or he was going to serve the suspension. I was, for the last week or so, been everything I'm hearing that it would not be reduced. So, there's still about a billion ways this could go. Jason, what are you hearing? What are you thinking?
My gut reaction is that the suspension will be served in its entirety this season.
Okay.
Because he's basically thumbing his nose at the NFL, and they don't react well to that. So I have a feeling they're going to throw everything they can at him to get that suspension pushed through this year. And really, we've mentioned this before, he's kind of hurting the team right now because when the suspension does go through, it's probably going to be near the end of the season. He may not be able to play in the playoffs, if they make the playoffs. So that could be a real problem. Now, I agree with you, Griffin, that I could totally see it just being drudged through the red tape and and being suspended and pushed back and all this other stuff until they come up with a ruling, and that could last all season. But something tells me it's not going to. I have the feeling he's going to serve his suspension this season.
I just see the NFL Players Association just doing everything they can to, like you said, bring up all this red tape. And, like you said, the league's going to throw everything they have at it, but if this goes to court, as it's looking like it is, I mean, we're waiting for a court ruling right now on the restraining order of the suspension. It's basically out of their hands. So, I mean, I look, bottom line, and this basically shows the range of outcomes that nobody knows. We're even divided here, and we've all been hearing a lot of the same things. So, I mean, if you have not drafted yet, which you better have, because there's one game's already been played, draft accordingly. But, I mean, if you already own Ezekiel Elliott, I mean, good luck, because I had him in a number of leagues last year, and I was not fortunate enough, at least I thought at the time, to get my hands on him. So I don't have any shares of him this year either, and that's not for lack of trying. But I'm kind of glad I don't right now, because this is one headache I get to avoid. So obviously, we will update you as we know more. If you want the news as it breaks, as soon as we know, we'll be tweeting out the results, and we'll talk about it, of course, on Tuesday's show. But if you need this information beforehand, he will be playing this weekend. But beyond that, remains to be seen. So we'll see. That's Ezekiel Elliott news as it's breaking. We are going to be basically junior lawyers by the time this is all said and done, I think. So let's move on to Jacksonville, where Jaguars running back Leonard Fournette is no longer listed on the injury report, which is great news, of course, coming off of a foot injury. So it looks like he's going to be geared up to play week 1, but it's a bad matchup against Houston, so temper expectations. At least that would be my thought process. Any additional thoughts, or good to move on?
Yeah, we get him.
Good. All right.
Move on.
And Seattle Seahawks running back Thomas Rawls remained a full participant at Thursday's practice. He is dealing with an ankle injury, but this just adds, good news for Rawls, bad news for Lacey, and adds more clutter to that backfield with the expectation going forward that Rawls would be ready to play week 1. Let's move on to some wide receiver news, where New York Giants wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. has a, quote, uphill battle to be on the field Sunday versus Dallas, and even if he plays, he won't be 100%, end quote. So guys, how does this impact the way you think that the Giants are going to play in Dallas for the season opener? And what do you think the chances are Odell Beckham Jr. does in fact suit up?
I would say that this raises Sterling Shepard in my mind, because I don't think, if they're smart, they will sit Odell Beckham Jr. down. I know it's a divisional rival, but he's not 100%. And when you play not 100%, you have a better chance of hurting yourself, even further and missing possibly more games. Sit him down, sacrifice his abilities for that game and figure out a different way. And that means Sterling Shepard. I mean, you've still got great receivers there. In Sterling Shepard and Brandon Marshall. I think this gives a boost to Brandon Marshall and Sterling Shepard, and maybe even Evan Ingram.
Oh, I think it has to give a boost to everybody, because those are targets that are going to have to be dispersed somewhere. Just as a note, he did not practice as of Thursday, but Brandon Marshall has said he will be ready to go for week 1. He's obviously been coming back from the shoulder injury, but by all reports, he seems to be doing fine. I was kind of thinking that they all just kind of took a step up, like you were saying. I think Brandon Marshall will see that kind of wide receiver 1 role. That's what he's played his whole career. Sterling Shepard bumps back into what he was doing last year. And, Evan Ingram, who's basically a big wide receiver playing the tight end position, I think all 3 of those guys are going to be running all over the field. So I think that Eli Manning's still a strong play. We were debating on picking him up in our industry league as ourselves, because we have Phillip Rivers in that league, and we obviously don't like his matchup this week against the Broncos. And but because I think that all these weapons are still going to have a pretty good game, because that Dallas defense got decimated this offseason. So, obviously, again, we do, if you're new to the show, CJ, are you still going to be doing your Periscopes this season?
To be determined, but most likely yes.
TBD. All right. Well, CJ does some Periscopes, which we try and tweet out from the main channel. He does that on his personal one, and he'll be giving a lot of hot takes on games and bold predictions the day of. I will be tweeting out on the main account at the FF Fanatics all the injury updates as they break come game time. So when we know, you will know pretty soon after that. Let's move on. Cincinnati Bengals rookie wide receiver John Ross returned to practice in a limited capacity on Thursday. So It's looking like there's a slight chance he does, in fact, play. I think if he does, it's going to be more of a diversionary role against the Ravens. But, we shall see. Are you guys, for starters, do you guys have any shares of John Ross? And if you do, would you be playing him week 1 against the Ravens at home?
I do have shares of him. I'm gonna pass on playing him this week just because, just like you said, I do think if he does play, he's probably gonna be a diversion guy, and you don't want that in your lineup. You want that guy to be a target and be able to be a focal point of the offense. So for me, no, I'm not gonna play him, but I do have high hopes for him later in the season.
Jason?
Pretty much exactly the same as CJ. I do have shares of him. I won't be playing him this week.
All right, and I let you guys answer that because I might be a little bit biased as a Ravens fan, so let's just move on. Chicago Bears offensive coordinator, just a little bit, Dwell Logans, I think is how you say his name. He believes that Sure. He believes that Kevin White, no, not Kareem Hunt. He believes that Kevin White can be a number 1 wide receiver, and to this I say, well, I certainly hope that the offensive coordinator believes that because he was a first-round pick, and yes, he has all the measurables and all the talent, but we have to see it. He's been trying to raise the argument that Kevin White has not been healthy going into a season as of yet. They have to be smarter with him. Maybe this is the year, and obviously with Cameron Meredith going down, Kevin White is in a prime position again to possibly break out. So is this a guy you guys are taking any types of waiver wire flyers on at this point, or is it just completely wait and see?
No.
CJ, were you personally burned by him?
You said what?
Were you burned by him in the past? Did you invest?
No, I was tired of hearing the hype about him when he first came out. There was so much hype about him, and I'm like, okay, this guy. We'll see what the kid got. Yep. His first year, he was a stinker. He was garbage, and then he comes back the second year, he does it again. Garbage again. I hate him running routes. Because his route game is terrible. He can't catch the ball. He's just a bad receiver. He's a bad receiver.
Well, of course he had a bad rookie year. He missed the whole rookie year with a knee injury. At least,
that's pretty bad.
I believe it was a knee. Brashad Perriman missed it with a knee. I know that. So, yeah, that's Kevin White. A lot of upside, but obviously a lot of skepticism. He's really polarizing is really what it boils down to. So, I mean...
the only way to make him a number 1 receiver is if you change his number to number 1. Then he's a number 1 receiver. There you go. Throw it to number 1. Other than that, I don't see him as the number 1 receiver, even in Chicago this year.
I agree. Thank you for the dad joke, Jason. Let's move on to Washington, where Redskins wide receiver Jamison Crowder was added to the injury report with a hip issue on Thursday. So severity yet unknown, but he is still by most accounts believed to play. This is just, he's banged up, and I think they were limiting his reps. So we will see if he is ready to play against the Eagles on Sunday. Last bit of wide receiver news. Arizona Cardinals wide receiver John Brown said he is ready for week number 1. So good news there from the guy who most analysts and Cardinals fans are believing will be the number 1 wide receiver in Arizona this year when healthy. So I guess we'll see. I mean, we're starting him in our industry league. We have a little bit of a cushion there because of Kareem Hunt, so we can take this risk. But I mean, it was him or Allen Robinson going against the Texans. John Brown's who we're going with.
Not a hard decision, honestly.
No. Matchups make it a lot easier, too. So let's move on to the tight end position, where Detroit Lions tight end Eric Ebron was no longer listed on the injury report. He has been dealing with a hamstring injury, so this is good news for Eric Ebron, but as we'll get into a little bit later on, maybe pump the brakes. He may or may not be showing up in either our starts or sits category. Based on the tone, you can probably guess which one. And let's move on to some other news, where ESPN's Adam Schefter reports that Los Angeles Rams defensive tackle Aaron Donald is expected to miss week 1. He is still in the midst of a holdout, contract debates. That's what he's been doing. So if you have him in IDP leagues, make moves. And along the same kind of line, Oakland Raiders outside linebacker / defensive end, depending on which website you're on, he's listed differently because they run that crazy hybrid defense. Khalil Mack was not participating. He has not yet participated this week, dealing with a knee injury. So, plan appropriately. And so, with that, let's move on to our very first segment of starts and sits for the 2017 season. Oh, guys, it's been a nice break from doing this, but I'm so excited to be back. This is our week 1 preview. So, if you're not familiar with how we do this, we're going to give you each a guy who we think is one of the top candidates to be a locked and loaded starter for this week, and a guy who we are absolutely pumping the brakes on and sitting this week if we can help it. And now, of course, for the starts especially, I mean, obviously, we could all say, oh, well, start Le'Veon Bell this week, but we're trying to keep that, the obvious all-stars that you're going to start probably regardless of matchup.
You are.
I know, right? I'm really good at this. All the guys who are obvious, those superstar guys you're starting that are matchup-proof, we're not going to talk about them. That'd be redundant. So, at least for the starts, we're going to be talking a lot of mid to lower-tier guys, unless it's just an incredible matchup. And then for sits, obviously, we're going to be focusing on some of those higher-end players. So, we're going to run down this position by position. We all have one guy that we have selected, and we will start at the quarterback position, and I guess I'll kick it off. And I am starting, if I can, in any leagues I have him, Derek Carr. Now, Derek Carr, he is a guy who, obviously, he got injured last season, but he still finished as a number 1 quarterback, and he is going against the Tennessee Titans this week. So, Tennessee. Just want to point this out there. Obviously, this is a new season. You have to throw all the stats out the window. But the Tennessee Titans gave up the 5th most points to the quarterback in fantasy football last season. And the Raiders, they are healthy. They have a new retooled run game. They have upgraded weapons at the wide receiver position. Yes, they've added some safety help, which will help in the tackling, but I just love the opportunity that Derek Carr has this week. Plus, the Titans have an amazing run defense. They were a top 5 last year in fantasy and in real life, so I think they're going to be running to set up the pass, and I think they're going to be passing offense. So I love Derek Carr this week. He is locked and loaded as a starter for me at the quarterback position. And because of his injury, a guy that slipped in drafts. So this is kind of where the concept of streaming quarterbacks comes in. There's a couple leagues that I play in where he was on the waiver wire, and guess who I'm streaming this week? Derek Carr. Play him with confidence. Who wants to go next?
That's a good move. I'll go next. My guy is Marcus Mariota, the same game that Griffin was talking about. But other side of the ball, look, Marcus Mariota is looking really good. I see that. I expect this game to be a shootout. So I expect both sides of the ball to be able to score points. I like Marcus Mariota and his weapons going against this Oakland Raiders defense that's, most likely going to be getting not 100% Khalil Mack, and that's going to hurt this team. You know what I mean? That is really going to hurt. So, and then their secondary is kind of questionable. David Anderson, I know he's expected to play, but I don't expect him to be 100%. So I'm expecting a lot of good points for those wide receivers, and I expect this Titans team to start off the season with a good start.
Oakland Raiders gave up the 10th most points to fantasy quarterbacks last year. So again, this is 2 matchups with top 10 matchups. So it should be a nice shootout for the quarterbacks in this one. I like it a lot. Like you said, another quarterback who got injured last year, so slipped in drafts. Jason, your guy.
Tyrod Taylor, because
this is bold.
The New York Jets.
On the Jets.
There's not much else you have to say other than he's playing the New York Jets.
I know.
Okay, they're not a good team, not a good defense. Overall, he's got the opportunity to do some really nice things this week. Start him with confidence.
Yeah, I only say it's bold because this is a guy who we keep hearing that he might lose his starting job. So one botched pass, one bad series. I mean, it could be bad for fantasy, but I agree. The matchup is beautiful. I think that streaming against the Jets will be a very common theme this offseason. So this is just the start of a very common theme that we're going to probably revisit quite a bit. You'll notice a trend going through the year. Let's move on to the running back position, where my start of the week, and I'm getting more and more excited that I accidentally drafted this guy in our league of record. I bid a little bit higher than I planned to, but it's looking to be just very, very nice. And if Kareem Hunt had such a great game, then I have high hopes for this guy as well. Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook seems to have completely solidified the job as the number 1 running back in Minnesota, and what a juicy matchup he has to start the season. He gets to start at home against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are
Oh.
never the same team when they are on the road, and the Saints give up the third most points to the running back position based on last year's stats.
Ouch.
Yes, they have spent a good amount of this offseason trying to upgrade that defense, but even still, they had more pieces than they could have possibly hoped to fill in one offseason, more holes, I should say. And as we talked about before, when we were talking about in the recap of Thursday Night Football, or the special presentation of Sunday Night Football, these defenses take a while to really gel and get their feet under them. It's going to take a couple weeks for the new pieces to really get going and build that chemistry with the old existing pieces. So even if the Saints do get a lot better this year, I don't think it's going to matter. In week 1 on the road, start Dalvin Cook. He has an amazing opportunity ahead of him. The only thing that could possibly hold back Dalvin Cook in my mind is Latavius Murray in the red zone, but I still have a lot of faith in Dalvin. I think he's going to be used as a 3-down back there and a workhorse, so I really like the matchup this week.
Mark my words, 2018, the year of the rookie running backs. And I'm going to follow that trend because Christian McCaffrey is going to be going to the Bay to face the Niners. And the Niners, they just look so juicy, just so primed to just get run all over. And I'm just hoping McCaffrey harnesses that Kareem Hunt potential, and he just goes and has a game against these guys, man. Cam Newton, they want him to stay in the pocket. They want him to take less hits. They want him to dink and dunk. This is the perfect dink and dunk candidate in Christian McCaffrey, starting with confidence.
You're not worried about Jonathan Stewart there?
No, I'm not. Not one bit.
All right, well, I guess we'll see.
All right.
I can't wait for week 1 for all these question marks to start getting answered. Jason, your guy.
That's going to be nice. Devontae Freeman, because they're playing Chicago. And again, matchup-wise, should cut the Bears. I'm sorry to all the Bears fans, but come on. I mean, not a good defense right now. They're rebuilding. It's okay, so they'll get better. But as of right now, they're going up against one of the best offenses in the league. Devontae Freeman is the clear starter there, and I think they're going to feature him more often than they did last year. He's more of a one-back with Tevin Coleman spelling him. So I think we'll see more points out of Devontae Freeman than we normally saw on average last year.
Are you at all concerned about the fact that the Bears were a bottom 6 matchup last year for the running back position? They were very good against the run for fantasy.
No, I'm not at all. They were okay, but they're playing against a team that is so high powered. They're going to have to figure out how to defend the entire field against Matt Ryan led Falcons. So I think they're going to have to back up and respect the pass, and that's going to open up a lot of running lanes for Devontae Freeman.
Oh, yeah. And kind of to your point, yeah, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I mean, the Bears are going to be so much further behind, I think. I'm sorry, Bears fans out there.
Yeah.
But you know it's true. They're going to be most likely playing from behind so much. The team's just going to be running all over them. So I think that this great statistical defense against the run is going to take a big hit in averages this year. So I like Devontae Freeman as well. He has a lot of upside in this game. I mean, especially as a workhorse in the new offense that they have there. Let's move on to the wide receiver position, where I am starting in this. You know, if I like the quarterback, I have to like the wide receiver, and I am starting Michael Crabtree. Guys, Michael Crabtree, he looks like he's just primed for yet another great year. I mean, he's got his quarterback back. So, I mean, obviously, it doesn't get much better than having your starting quarterback. And also, he's got a number of wide receivers around him who they do something he doesn't do. They run really fast, they stretch the field, and they open up all the intermediate stuff, which is where Michael Crabtree thrives. He thrives in the intermediate, he thrives in the red zone, and he's going against the team that was the number 1 best matchup for wide receivers last year. So, I love the opportunity that Michael Crabtree has against the Tennessee Titans this week. Yes, it's on the road, but that doesn't concern me. It's a juicy matchup. Start him with confidence this week.
My guy is Adam Thielen. My dude, he's going against the Saints. You know, we were just talking about the Vikings, man. My man said Dalvin Cook, Griffin Palmer. I like Adam Thielen because, man, look, Sam Bradford, he made this dude a star last season. And I think he's going to make him a superstar this year, man. So look, and that Saints secondary, yes, they got a little younger. They improved a little bit, but they got youth on their side. And with youth comes inexperience. So I look that Adam Thielen is going to have a good game, and Sam Bradford will be able to pick off the Saints defense.
Good matchup.
He's got a feeling.
Yeah.
My guy is Doug Baldwin. They're playing Green Bay. Green Bay had a very, very bad year against the pass last year. They were very suspect in the secondary. They did add some pieces this offseason, but not enough to really turn that around to being a good secondary. So I look for Doug Baldwin to get his points this week. I like it.
I agree. I like it. So with that, let's move on to the tight end position. Now, my tight end that I am saying that you have to start, and this is a little bit more of a deep dive, which is, again, this is why we do this, is Charles Clay, Buffalo Bills. So, I mean, look, Jason likes Tyrod Taylor. I like who I think will honestly lead the team in receptions this year. If it's not LaShawn McCoy, I don't think it's a wide receiver. I think it is Charles Clay. They're going against the Jets, which is they are tanking this season, and they are doing it on purpose. And they're doing a really good job doing some nice waiver wire moves right now and trying to add some pieces. But I think it's all just trying to throw the league off the scent or off their trail. They're scamming for Sam pretty hardcore. So look, Charles Clay, he's going up against a defense that also was the 11th best matchup last year against tight ends. So he's got a great matchup before they lost all these pieces, and he's going to get a lot of volume. I think he's going to be the main target in the red zone for receiving as well. So, I mean, Charles Clay is one of my top candidates for breakout at the tight end position. I drafted him in our league of record. And, with Julius Thomas not playing this week, guess who I slid into my starting position in that league? Charles Clay. Start him with confidence. Do not be disappointed.
I like that, man. Following the same trend. Look, I just talked about another Vikings player.
You are all in on the Vikings this week, CJ.
I'm on Vikings this week. I'm all in. I'm sorry, Saints, but listen, man. Kyle Rudolph, another guy that I absolutely love. Another guy, Sam Bradford, just revived out of the grave like the Undertaker and brings him back, and he starts doing his thing. I love me some Kyle Rudolph this week. Start him with confidence.
I like it.
Yep, love me some Kyle Rudolph. I've got him in a couple leagues. Another guy you should be looking at, Greg Olsen. They're playing San Francisco at San Francisco. San Francisco's got some talent on that team, but they are trying to gel its first year with this new regime. So there's going to be a lot of growing pains, and I think that a big time beneficiary of that is going to be Greg Olsen. So start him with confidence. He's got a really nice matchup.
I agree. We picked on the 49ers a little bit. Just on a side conversation, I'm actually really excited to see the development of the 49ers this season. They have a lot of really good young pieces there that I think are going to set a really good foundation for a couple years going forward.
Are you just hoping that your boy Hoyer actually did something so you don't look like an idiot?
Oh, no. Hoyer's going to be great this year. Don't you worry about that. And so is Pierre Garçon. So
what? Like playing chess, or what's he going to be great at?
Pierre Garçon's going to be a great fantasy option. Just wait and see. As long as everybody stays healthy. That's my contingency right there. But no, I think for IDP and just in general, I think there's going to be a lot of really good young defensive pieces that are going to be what they build around going forward. I'm excited to see them develop this year. Let's move on to our sits of the week. And, of course, just like before, we're going to start at the quarterback position. And I'm going to start with a name that might surprise you. Ben Roethlisberger, Pittsburgh Steelers at Cleveland Browns. Now, this might be surprising because, again, Ben Roethlisberger, he's playing against the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns, they were the best matchup for quarterbacks last year. I mean, this was the team that you always started your quarterbacks against. But here's the problem. Ben Roethlisberger is even worse when it comes to home road splits than Drew Brees is. Plus, this is divisional, so they're very good. Ben Roethlisberger historically does not play well on the road against divisional foes. I think he got 8 points. I don't have it in front of me. It was 8 point something on the road last season in Cleveland. And I think they're going to be so far up. And we've already heard about how they're going to try and give Le'Veon Bell up to 30 touches this week. I think they're going to get up early. And I think they're just going to run the ball down the Browns' throat. So I just don't see an opportunity. I think they're going to be careful with it. I just don't like Ben Roethlisberger this week. I've seen it happen too many times. And this happens basically every year. Everyone sees this matchup and they think, oh, it's going to be awesome. And if it's in Pittsburgh, go for it. But on the road in Cleveland, and guess what? That defense has a lot of nice young pieces as well. They're going to be improved. Well, I mean, I'm not sure if it's going to be showing week one, but they are going to be improved. So Ben Roethlisberger is a guy who I'm sitting this week and looking for other waiver wire options.
Yeah, I feel you, man. I second that opinion. Listen, once again, Saints, I'm sorry.
Jeez,
but
CJ.
I'm going to say
You have
do
3
not
more
start.
matchups in the
Listen,
sits.
I got the same point just like you.
Oh,
Ben
man.
Roethlisberger's not good away from the crib. Guess what? Drew Brees is the same thing.
You're right.
He's not that good away
You are
from
right.
the dome.
True.
So why would I tell you to go start Drew Brees when I know he's not that good away from the crib? Listen, don't do it. All right. There's many other options. Don't do it.
I'm just laughing because
Sit
you
him
have so many Vikings in your starts and so many Saints in your sits.
I know, right?
Holy crap! I didn't look at it till right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, Drew
Yeah,
Brees
it's all the way down too.
Yeah, bad matchup on the road. I agree. Drew Brees is a good candidate to sit. Look, you took him early. You took him for 8 games at home. This is not one of those games. Jason, your guy.
Much as it pains me to say it, Phillip Rivers. He's playing the best secondary in the league in Denver. I mean that is a tough team to play, especially in their own house. So going on the road, he's playing Denver divisional. I would sit Phillip Rivers if I were you, and I am sitting Phillip Rivers because I have several shares of him.
Yep. We're doing it in our big industry league. It's a bad matchup.
Yep.
Now and I believe you guys share this opinion, think that the Broncos are going to take a decent step backwards this year. I mean, they just got rid of T.J. Ward. I mean, DeMarcus Ware retired, and the biggest thing of all, they lost Wade Phillips, their coordinator, who made that defense go from good to great. I think they're still going to be good, but I don't know if they're going to be truly elite anymore, but it's still just a really bad divisional matchup. So we all agree, Phillip Rivers, if you can sit him, go ahead and sit him this week. With that, let's move on to our running backs. Now, my sits of the week are the Cincinnati Bengals running back core. We've heard that Jeremy Hill is going to be the starter this week, so, I mean, Joe Mixon truthers out there, this is what we warned you about. It's going to take a little while, or potentially some injuries. But, look, they're going against the Baltimore Ravens. Yes, they're at home, but the Ravens are one of the top rush defenses in the league. They have drastically upgraded even more on that side of the field this offseason. And, this is a bunch of gadget players, and you can't start just one of these guys and expect them to have a breakout week when there's 2 other guys that they're going to be rotating in against a tough run defense and a divisional foe who knows them very, very well. It's a sticky situation. I don't like it, and it's not just because I'm a Ravens fan. This is just a bad matchup. I'm sitting all my Bengals running backs this week.
Yeah, I second that, man. You guys been looking really good, and I don't want to start anything right now, week 1 against Baltimore.
I love defense.
Yeah, I do. I do too. Listen, once again, sorry, just saying, but Adrian Peterson, not liking him this week against the Vikings. They got a really good defense, dude. And it has nothing to do with just them being Saints. It's just the matchup they have. It's a really bad matchup. I would not suggest you start Adrian Peterson. And if you have to, just minor expectations. Just bring them down.
Is it Adrian Peterson and Saints running backs, or just Adrian Peterson?
It is. Well, I mean, Alvin Kamara might be something.
I believe Mark Ingram isn't he slated as the starter?
Ask yourself that question again. Ask yourself that question. We're talking about Mark Ingram. Right?
I actually don't believe he is. I don't believe he is. I was looking through.
Come on, stop it.
The charts, and I saw Adrian Peterson's name above his. So I'm pretty sure Adrian Peterson is the starter.
I'm gonna look it up right now because I honestly don't know.
Yeah, look it up.
Look it up.
I may be wrong.
It's no good. If anything, keep dive for Alvin Kamara. I'm sorry.
There you go. That could be that. Yeah, passing.
Mark Ingram. This can't be accurate. It says Tim Hightower.
This is great radio, by the way.
Hightower's not on the team anymore. Okay, so the Saints official website is not even updated. Oh, good lord, because they still have Willie.
Saints social media guy. Nice
wow.
work.
Come on, Sean Payton.
They have Willie Snead as the starter, and then Michael Thomas as the second wide receiver. What is this?
That's old.
And it still has Brandon Cook. Okay, New Orleans Saints. Come on, you guys need to update your website. Come on. All right. Sorry.
Don't you have a guy for that?
They should. If they do, he should be fired. Good lord. I'm going to go to a third-party website. Continue.
Good idea. All right. So my guy this week is I know I've been saying his praises and talking about him, but Paul Perkins. Here's the deal. Dallas is a good run defense. Now, they've been decimated this offseason. They've lost a lot of pieces. However, New York does not play well against Dallas. They proved it last year when they lost both of their games to Dallas. They're playing in Dallas, and that offensive line has not looked.
They won those games.
Go ahead.
Giants won.
I'm sorry.
Giants won both those games, yeah.
I was going to make that point
running
earlier about somebody else. The running game is bad, and the offensive line is bad. So those two reasons are the reasons why I would sit Paul Perkins. And I apologize for misspeaking about how they play against Dallas. They play very well against Dallas. However, this year I have a bad feeling about the run game against Dallas just because that offensive line has not been upgraded to run the ball better.
No, they're trying to pass pro. They're trying to pass all day, every day. Oh, yeah, so
all over the way.
I'm looking at an official depth chart, which is updated, and this shows Mark Ingram as the starter, Adrian Peterson, and then it's Alvin Kamara, and then, what the heck's his name?
Some other guy.
Lasco, I think is how you say it. Daniel Lasco. So yeah. Regardless, doesn't
Sure,
matter.
right.
So okay, just updating. Let's move back to what we are talking about and more of our sits, and let's move on to the wide receiver position where I am sitting T.Y. Hilton. Now, look. This could be bold, just like with my Ben Roethlisberger sit. I'm talking about sitting another guy who has a top 3 matchup. It's an amazing, juicy matchup. But here's the thing. Just like the point we made before about Wade Phillips, he's now in Los Angeles. Los Angeles has a lot of very talented pieces. And yes, Aaron Donald won't be there, but they have a lot of other really good pieces there. Besides that, Wade Phillips, he is, I think, one of, if not the best defensive coordinators in the league. I think this is going to be a much tougher matchup. And guess what? They are going to be at home. And the Colts don't have Andrew Luck. So they're going to have a really hard time moving the ball. They have looked like a train wreck without him. So I really like the Rams' chances of really shutting down the Colts pretty efficiently this week. So T.Y. Hilton, I'm sorry, he's going to be drawing the top coverage. I just don't like the opportunity this week. So I am not starting T.Y. Hilton. And this is a guy you probably took in your second round. So sorry. Hopefully you guys have contingency plans. CJ, your guy.
My guy, man, it's twofold why I say sit this guy and don't start him. One, because he has a terrible quarterback, and I'm talking about Allen Robinson. Blake Bortles, you already know what he's about. Number 2, he's going against the Texans. At the Texans. Texans have a very good defense. And then I mentioned that Blake Bortles is a bad quarterback. So, yeah, let's sit Allen Robinson this week.
I like it.
All right. My guy is somebody that I actually really like and I have a lot of shares of. This week, I would definitely sit him down. I'm talking about Golden Tate out of Detroit. And the reason that I would sit Golden Tate down is because he's going to have a brand new snazzy piece of clothing he's going to be wearing this week by the name of Patrick Peterson. Everywhere this guy goes, he's going to have
I see what he did there.
Is that a large?
Running next
extra
to
large?
He's extra large. He's gonna be draped all over him. It's gonna look really nice. He's gonna look at himself in the mirror and go, "Oh, look at that."
So you're saying Golden Tate looks good in red and not in blue? I got it. Okay.
Well, he's gonna look really good in red.
Okay.
He's gonna look really good in red. Not as good as in catching the ball, though. That's the thing. He is not going to have an inch of space to catch that ball this week.
Crazy.
So I would definitely sit him down.
Kenny Golladay. He's one of our sleeper candidates we talked about on the Patreon show. Moving on to the tight end sits of the week. Mine, and this pains me to say this, but I am sitting Eric Ebron.
Oh no!
Yes, he's healthy. Yes, he's back, but he's also on the road. Kenny Galladay's been looking pretty good, and they're both going to be pass catchers in the red zone. And did I mention, that, just like Jason was pointing out, the Lions are traveling to Arizona into the desert. Lions don't fare well in deserts. And the Cardinals also were the worst matchup for tight ends last season, averaging 6.3 fantasy points per game to the position as a whole. So I definitely don't like Eric Ebron's chances of having a good week this week. So I'm sitting Eric Ebron until some better opportunities present themselves down the line. Literally, it doesn't get worse than this based on last year's stats. So I'm sitting Eric Ebron this week.
Yeah, listeners, just go back and rewind that again and again. I know I am. So listen, all right, my guy that I'm going to be sitting down this week, and I love to do it, not just because he's a bad tight end, but also because he's going against
such
a
a
very
hater.
good defense that has really good linebackers that are really good against tight ends. So that's going to be bad for you. And I'm talking about Mr. Cody Fleener. So please, guys, there's better options out there. Do not start this guy. Sit him down.
You mean Kobe Fleener, right? The B.
Yeah,
Either way.
well,
His
trash
last name is
Fleener.
Fleener,
I
don't
normally
start
call him Trash Fleener,
Oh,
but
okay.
you know, whatever his
Nice.
name is.
That's rough. That's rough.
All right, Jason, take us home.
All right. So Griffin mentioned that the Arizona Cardinals were the worst matchup against tight ends last year. One of the reasons they were the worst matchup was a guy by the name of Tony Jefferson.
Yep.
Tony Jefferson now plays for the Baltimore Ravens,
Hey.
which means this week you probably shouldn't start Tyler Eifert.
No,
He's
wondering where you're
there.
going with that.
There you go. They're playing Baltimore. He's got to go and deal with that defense, and he's got to deal with a very savvy, very smart, very, very good Tony Jefferson, who is going to shut him down and get some interceptions if they try to go to him.
And hard hitting. Maybe he'll break Tyler Eifert. Just saying.
Well, that doesn't take much.
Wow,
Breathe
Griffin.
on him.
Look, football's here. It's a divisional matchup. All right, so those are our starts and our sits for week number 1. We did it, guys. The season is here. I'm so excited. All right, please make sure you guys tune in on Tuesday when we will be talking about our top waiver wire targets and pickups for week number 2. Oh, man, I can't wait. So, football, it's almost here. So, remember, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, you can support the show, help us keep doing what we're doing, get yourself a lot of bonus perks, episodes, things of that nature every single week. Just head over to patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. You can find all of our stats and articles on thefantasyfootballfanatics.com. And make sure you guys just subscribe to the show. We are here every single Tuesday and Friday throughout the season, bringing you all of these starts and sits, all the waiver wire options, all the top headlines, everything you need to know to hopefully bring home one of these fantasy titles at the end of the year. And of course, you can get breaking news as it breaks in between recordings. That gives you a nice edge, just saying, on Twitter at the FF Fanatics, or you can follow us individually. I'm at GPalmerFFF, CJ is at CJ Hickman89, and Jason is at Jason Cabrera13. So with that, any parting thoughts before we sign off, guys?
Guys, hit us up, man. Week 1 is here. You know, so if you need help with your lineup, submit some questions, man. Hit us up. We're here to be used and to be your help to get you to that championship, man.
That's what we do.
Use it.
All right. Jason, any parting thoughts?
Guys, enjoy week 1. Football is back.
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. I'm so ready. All right, we're out of here.
Yeah.
Everyone, take care. Have a great weekend. Enjoy football, and we will see you on Tuesday.
Hello.
Bye.
Life in the fast lane, moving at the speed of life and I can't slow down. Only got a gallon in the gas tank. Almost at the finish line, so I can't stop now.